admittedly is not vast. The challenges of setting up a community garden are organizational. You know, it's a lot easier to grow food in San Diego than to organize people. So, well, that's true anywhere. The course we set up was designed to build on the Victory Garden courses that we've given so far, which there's been about 15, I think, around the county, which are extremely hands-on and collaborative. And the idea is basically that this group would get to know each other slowly and steadily over the course of 8 weeks, which is longer than our usual course. Our usual courses are 4 or 5. And the organizational kind of bonding would emerge organically from that process. And I think so far it's actually happened. So the other important early thing we did was for Judy to lead the ABCD exercise. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, and we're putting this in the new curriculum that's coming out of the community gardens. Pretty much what we decided is, one thing is growing food and things, but the other piece of a community garden that's really important is building community. And that is often, and we've actually seen it in a lot of older gardens that are around, that there isn't much community. They have very little to do with anybody outside their garden. And here, this garden is now already, you can tell, well on its way to involving everybody in their community, anybody they can come up with. So there is this type of community organization theory called ABCD, which is asset-based community development. And it's really based on being citizen versus client, so that you're looking at it as we are the citizens versus we're going to help you do something. So it's about a social service going out to help people. It's focused on everybody's strengths rather than their weaknesses, and use that half full, half empty idea of a glass. And here we're doing the half full, half full versus the half empty.
I never remember either.
I get myself confused. And it's the power from relationships, which we have already seen that building tremendously by what has happened miraculously out of an idea where you thought nobody was going to show up. So, and then building on opportunities as they arise, like the rare fruit growers was great, that helped out with that. And then just integration of other community development principles that are well known. So when we went at this meeting, what we kind of did was try to identify those strengths. And first we just listed what people's strengths were in the room and what kinds of things they could bring to this project. And I think initially people were, I don't really have very much to offer. But once we started pointing out what they'd already said when they introduced themselves, we had a whole list of strengths. And we listed those all on the board. We pretty much filled up the whiteboard there with all the things that we had. And then we thought about relationships that we had that we could bring in to help with the garden from all things. Then again, we came up with all these ideas about who knew people who had different kinds of skills in carpentry and plumbing and in finance and all the types of things that you might need for a garden. So I think by the end of that, there was a good sense that there was more, that the resources were there, that we could find them. And I know that when you start thinking about starting a garden, it's kind of an overwhelming idea. You're thinking, oh, I don't know I'm not that good a gardener, I don't really know anybody, I don't have any money, all the things that could really intimidate you. But once you start identifying things, and everybody's like up and believing that they can do it. So that's really important. And then the last piece is, because you're doing this as a group, you're building community right there to begin with, and then building alliances out in the community. And we want to really urge people that when they're building a community garden, they're also thinking what they can do for the community outside too. How they can make themselves a good neighbor, how people are going to say, wow, we're so lucky to have this community garden in the neighborhood because they have these events, or they offer food for people, or it's beautified the neighborhood, or for any number of reasons. So I think that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yes, but there's some details about that I remember well, which is that the class, we signed up about 25 people, which is huge. Usually the classes are about 15. And after about 2 or 3 weeks, it settled down to about 15, 18 regulars. And that first exercise, Judy makes it sound easy that people were volunteering. I'm a plumber, I'm an electrician, but it didn't happen that way. People are reluctant to talk publicly. They're reluctant to share information, open up to each other. So we went around the room about 3 times. And it was only when somebody kind of got guilt tripped in a way by listening to somebody across the room say something that this person said, oh, you know, I was an accountant for 15 years and I was hoping never to have to look at another spreadsheet, but I guess I can help with the budget. You know, it was that sort of, you know, process of people finally coming forward with what their skills were, and also thinking about skills that they didn't associate with a garden. You know, so it's really about digging down and thinking, you know, there is something I could do that actually could be helpful probably in this group. So it's not as easy as it sounds to get that information from people.
And one sentence, and then I'll hand it to you. I'm just going to pass this around. This is just a diagram of building reciprocal relationships. So if you want to just kind of have a look at how you can, ways that you can
Part of that exercise that Judy led us in is, you know, there was this silence, and, you know, pastors are sort of, so, you know, I just go to the practical, oh, well, we just want to do this garden for, you know, people want to grow their own vegetables in community. And Judy just very calmly said, well, let's just find out what everybody's hope is for this. And so she just very gently went around the whole room, and people talked about how gardening was their spirituality, how they wanted to give back to the community. I mean, it was just incredible why people were there. And if somebody has given up 8 Saturdays from 1 to 4, there's something that moved them to be there. And Judy was able to, in a very gentle leadership way, to invite people to articulate what it was that had brought them there. And it was a variety of things. And the one other thing we probably haven't talked about yet is that in planning this space, having a social space always came up. People wanted to be someplace where they could meet others who were interested in what they were interested in, which was gardening. Beats going to the corner bar. So they were, well, red shirt. So there's a social
You can do
space.
both.
There's a social space in the middle. I mean, if the class had any fault at all, it was this, that the people were so creative, and what they'd seen in fully developed community gardens is they were already down at, you know, MNOP, and folks, just now we have to do ABC first, you know, and because they could just envision what it could be. And so I'm just going to be interested in hanging around the edges and see what happens, because I think, you know, over the next couple of years, it could be a really exciting space and place in what was a wasteland on the back of our property.
So the subtext of the course really was to sort of sneak up on the organization, not to sit in a room and think, you know, okay, we got to get organized and what's our mission statement, but to do stuff that helped this group become a group and have that stuff emerge naturally. I think the second week, the designers took us through a full 3-hour session on strategic brainstorming about design. And they wrote everything down, they went away, and they came back with this presentation of kind of a series of conceptual designs for the garden. And this was circulated and actively discussed. Pass this around. The site, just to be clear for everybody, there's a parking lot here. This is all dirt, but the church wanted to retain some extra space for parking. And these buildings here, you can sort of see in the background.
You can see it up here. You see where the parking is in the parking space.
Also, the very first thing we did on the first day was we built compost bins for 2 reasons. One is to, actually 3 reasons. One is to start composting, and the other 2 are get people to do something physically with their hands, and also then to say, start bringing stuff from home. So usually in Victory Gardens courses, we bring the stuff that the class needs. In this case, we said, well, let's see if the class can bring it. So every week we would email out to the whole group, for this class coming up, we need X, Y, or Z. And you know, one time we said we need some compost, and 3 different people went to Miramar and loaded up their trucks, and we had, you know, more compost than we could deal with for weeks. So I think what that did is it got people involved with bringing stuff and the idea that they have stuff to contribute and they have stuff that can be brought to, that's just, you know, rusting away in their backyard to reuse. So it was it's another kind of subtle way of encouraging engagement.
It made the assets conversation become real because they were providing assets every week, both themselves and other stuff that they provided or went out and got.
So we have a lovely set of photographs that are
You can
invisible
barely see.
here. Maybe we should cluster around the screen.
Yeah.
How much food does these gardens yield?
At the moment, not much, because everything just
It's a
started.
baby.
The class ended last Saturday. So halfway through the class, Yael led the propagation process, and so all those seedlings are planted. Maybe you could try to go to the end to
Well,
see.
yeah, these are some of the in-process pictures, hay bales for compost.
This is early.
Yeah.
I can tell you that the New Roots Farm says that they're producing almost 1,000 pounds a month. Is that? I think it's an incredible amount. Anyway, it's a lot. They're really producing a lot, and they're doing many. Some of the farmers are putting in new crops 3 or 4 or 5 times a year. They're harvesting.
Maybe you can just look at this. Show us this way.
Yeah, no, this would probably be a better picture. Let's do this. Can people see that? It's brighter. Oh, lost the. This is a good thumb drive because it's a good. That helps
So,
much.
these are the
No, this is Yael teaching the class.
Those are the compost bins in the back. And the class, the dirt there is really almost unusable because it's 50 years of fill from various construction sites, so it's got absolutely no natural structure at all. So we did sheet mulching, raised up from that, and hopefully eventually that will, you know, percolate down and rejuvenate some of the soil life. So everybody built, the class built everything. You know, we just stood there and gave orders, and people did all the work themselves, which is another sort of trick to get people to work together. We initially set up 2 or 3 beds. You can actually go forward. And rather than come up with volume, we came up with sort of a small little starter set of beds and divided them up so that people got, you know, maybe 20, 25 square feet. Not a lot of area, but there were 2 reasons for that. One was, most of these people hadn't done gardening before, so they're just getting started. And starting small is always a good idea. But it also kind of enforced them to be working shoulder to shoulder, side by side. You know, eventually these people will all get full-size plots and they'll grow a lot of food. But that ideally should happen slow and steady in a way that makes them comfortable with larger growing areas.
So we showed different types of beds too: keyhole beds, straight line, wood raised beds, and then using straw wattle in it. You can create organic shapes as well, all raised, but all kind of different because we wanted to show different materials that you could use. And that S came from all the stuff they had. They had a bunch of old bricks and a lot of rocks, and so they came up with kind of. They thought, well, let's do the S, but then they came up with the artistic design of the brick and the stone and so again, just kind of building an identity and a bit of pride, I think.
That was a crazy picture. We did a sober one and a crazy one. That's that time lapse.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So then, not the last. So the designers took back everybody's comments about this, and then they came back with their presentation. And we had come up with this very witty idea of starting out with a set of beds that spell SM. And so the designers were
For Sera, Mesa.
Thank you. The designers were forced to include those in the design, which I will give them a little more input next time. But they basically came up with a design that had expandability so that as more people joined the garden and more money was available, this could be introduced in phases. And so the burden of doing it all at the same time was postponed. So ultimately this could have probably 60 or 70 beds.
And critters were an issue, and so in this one you can see it maybe a little better than that, but we did just a simple rabbit fence around the perimeter. So that was another kind of, before we planned it, we put up the fence.
Did that work, the little rabbit fence?
So
is
far.
it working so far?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
There's
just
a million rabbits.
We have a lot of rabbits off that
Yeah.
canyon, and coyotes and raccoons and lots of
Yeah.
critters. And so far, I think it's doing well. We will be putting in permanent, regular chain link fencing, which we have. It's amazing how you begin to get donations. Early on, before this even started, I had gotten 84 foot of chain link fence. I got a bunch of free dirt. I got a bunch of straw. We had stuff out there, and people were like, what is happening? Because they didn't even know we were going to be starting a community garden. And then we also have, I think it's Atlas Tree, they bring all the wood chips. And they like it. They have a place to bring it, and we're going to use it between the beds. So it's helpful to a lot of different people. They're very happy that we
It's
work
good
together.
to have a procurer like Brenda too. She was like the procurer, the Excelsior.
I never say no. I figured we'll do something.
Yeah.
Figure it out later.
That's right.
But it was great. These offers came in for all kinds of things.
So this just that really cheap green plastic fencing from Home Depot that curved out at the bottom to keep the rabbits from coming under. Because the rabbits, you see them walking around in the daytime, they're just saying, bring it on. They're not. They're everywhere. So this is the people working on the last day of the class, and the next steps are up to these guys.
Well, we have a big meeting today, and then the next week meeting is our big organizational meeting. We're going to have co-directors, I think, and we're going to really be getting some plans. We've got more fencing coming and some other things, so next week I think we'll be making some decisions.
So is this a movement that's happening across the country, or you guys see this happening in
It's happening across the country, and it's happening here in San Diego. I field calls, at least 2 or 3 different people who are interested, or emails from people who are interested in starting gardens around the county. So it's going. It's on its way.
Is there any concern for I remember hearing Van Santo's lobbying to actually pass legislation to
Viable.
stop from growing their gardens in their own homes.
Well, that's another
Is
thing.
that something that is a concern to me? Because you think about it, they own all these seed companies and they're genetically modifying all these
That's
seeds.
another thing that we're going to encourage is people saving seeds. So, in one of the curriculums, we're going to put some links for people who are interested in saving seeds on where you can go, and maybe over time we'll have some classes in that separately. But
There's a seed swap tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
There's a seed swap tomorrow organized by Wild Below.
Great. So, so there are probably about 20,000 community gardens in the United States right now. And it's hard to keep track because I know every time you look at any city, they're saying we're opening 3 more now and 4 more next season or whatever. So they are growing at a tremendous rate. It's a high time for them. Is this a good time for me to talk?
Well, no, let's finish this real quick. The group divided into these action teams about 2/3 of the way through the course. So the course became really the focused meeting time, Saturday afternoons for garden education, for design, and for this organization. And these are real names of people who are in these particular categories, which just emerged, again, naturally from what was needed at that time. And they weren't meant to be permanent, but just kind of working groups. So, you guys want to? No? Okay.
And I think it really was a natural process from the beginning, where we were kind of directing, instructing, organizing, advising, to shifting over time to now we're not there, but the structure's in place, and was really getting in place about, like, you know, well, starting week 1, but by week 4, week 5, things, you know, had pretty much, you know, were shifting over, and we would, you know, say, okay, well, this is the activity we're going to do today, but they were having pre-planning meetings and things about carrying the garden forward, you know, before our lesson even started. So, and again, they've got their meeting schedule set out to move forward.
Just go one more. I'm going to say one more thing and then let Judy talk for a while.
Go one more?
Well, yeah.
Is there one more?
Should be.
No. That's the last one.
Okay. Well, this. Okay.
We
So the designers get a lot of credit for this because they did a lot of work, and you know, there's pro bono. It was a student project, and there really were 2 benefits that I see. One is the design itself, which is, you know, hugely valuable, but it's also the process of coming to this course and treating this group like clients, you know, like paying clients. So the group basically kind of developed some group cohesion, self-esteem, and started thinking, oh yeah, we can tell these people what we want, and they'll go away, and 2 weeks later they'll come back and show us design. So it's that process of, you know, generating group cohesion. Any questions?
Are you guys going to continue to stay involved?
Informally, yeah.
To the degree that they want us.
Yeah, if they invite us back.
I think the thing that was really paramount was the 8-week kind of a course that we offered, well, that Victory Gardens offered, from, you know, to just encourage people that even if you have never had any experience before, that this gives you an opportunity to learn hands-on how to do everything you need to do. And I think what that did is it gave everybody the courage and the confidence that they could really be a part of it. And that was really important. So that by the end of the 8th week, we were ready.
Well, and we've even involved a lot more people in the composting, because we knew of composters, didn't know how to build them and what it all consisted of, and we've had multiple lessons on that. Now we've got people from the community bringing their compost that they save from their kitchen, putting it on our composters. So people are pretty excited about that. And cardboard's being saved, and newspaper and things like that. And,
But the food pantry has it's open every Wednesday.
every Wednesday and one Saturday.
So we told them how to put their spoiled food, take the plastic off, put the spoiled food in the compost. So it's kind of a self-sustaining process. So
all this, I just want to point out that from the ABCD concept, what this is a sort of an example of is you can't give people power, but people have to take their own power. It's a way of empowerment, and once they started taking over these action teams and starting doing things on their own, they were straightforward. They're empowered then. So it's kind of cool.
Well, I'm wondering about 2 things. Well, they're sort of related. To do with water. I'm wondering if it's the church's water that goes to irrigate the beds.
Yes.
Well, yes, but each person who has a plot will be charged about $10 a month to offset the cost of the water and maybe some other improvements. But yeah, initially the Yosemite paid for the water to be trenched out to the site.
And we understand that there are small portable meters. We haven't figured out yet if we need to go that route, or we'll monitor water bills and see what the increase is. Again, I think that's something that we're just leaving for development, for evolving, and I'm comfortable with that evolving.
And I know it's early days, and so this is probably one of those preemptive questions, but I'm wondering about, it sounds like you might be open to rain barrel systems and rain catchment and all that kind of thing.
We've got some coming, actually.
Right.
Again, out of the goodness of what God has given us, we've got rain barrels coming from, do you remember, where was it? Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola.
Right.
Yeah, so we're going to be
in the group who have done quite extensive recapturing of rainwater and stuff at their home. But they want to be a part of this community thing too. So we are benefiting from their experience at home in terms of how to do this as a group.
So I think this all brings me right back to the Community Garden Network and what I would like to see happen out of what I would like to see it become. And I think these kinds of information, things that you learn while you're doing your community gardens, are things that I would love for you to share with other people on an ongoing basis. And right now I have a Facebook page that's up and going nicely. It's San Diego Community Gardens. It's open. You can post anything you want on there. So, and I've already posted pictures, some of these pictures on the website of the new garden. But you're welcome to post more things, comments, anything that you think is useful. Anybody can get on there. We also have a new website. It's also San Diego Community Garden Network.org. And that we're working on, I'd like to set up a blogs there so that each garden, any garden that wants to have a blog there, can have both an internal and an external blog. So you can do things, so you don't even have to set up your own website if you don't want to. You can talk amongst just the garden, or you can talk publicly to everybody about what you're doing. So,
is that only related to community gardens, or is it also about wider food justice?
Well, it's peripherally. I mean, it's sort of, it is a community garden network, but we're going to talk about anything that relates to community gardens, so food justice is certainly a part of it.
What was that?
San Diego Community Gardens is the Facebook page, and the other one is San Diego Community Garden Network.org. I didn't bring them. It's brilliant me, I didn't bring my company cards. But anyway, they need to be redone.
Marco.
I'm really excited for what's happening at those two churches, and I think it's amazing. And, we're having a similar thing happen in Vista right now at Presbyterian Church, and we're starting with our first phase. It's going to be 75 feet by 50 feet wide. That's like the area we're working with. But do you have any recommendations for soliciting donations? Materials and construction materials and wood and things like that?
Well, there's always Craigslist is one place for free things, but then again, really tapping into the people that are working at the church and kind of having a sit down like Sera Mesa had and El Cajon is having right now, and really having them stretch and see what are their connections, and there are probably more than they're really thinking about on the surface. And so time spent digging there will net you probably some real positive types of assets.
And even when you don't offhand know, you can just walk into places that have what you want and tell them what you're doing. And it's amazing how many times people will offer to either give you at a really good discount rate or for free. For another garden I worked on, we walked into RCP and that gave us quite a bit of snow. So you just have to, you really have to get out there and do it. We'll have in this curriculum that's coming up, there is a section on fundraising.
And asking
how to do it.
Having the space, Marcos, already, and then thinking about, kind of what your presentation is. Here's what we're doing. We're this church, we're making this thing, and we're putting this garden in to help these people. To have a clear vision stated to them, maybe something written down, saying we're for real. And that probably helps too in a smooth, to smooth the way for getting donations.
So if anybody wants a plot at Sera Mesa, give your information to Brenda.
And I want to do my ask, since you asked about asking. So for the network, we're really looking for volunteers, looking for people with any kinds of skills, many different types of skills. We still need help with the website, that's why that's going really slowly. I'm terrible, and I do have a couple of people. One person set it up, and another person is beginning to help me. She's trying to learn WordPress, so if anybody knows WordPress and wants to help out, that would be excellent. And we need people who are willing to do things like write stories or go out and get them, or who are interested in fundraising, or just the whole gamut, the same things that you need for a community garden we'll need for the network, and it's also sharing, especially sharing your knowledge with other people.
If I could add one thing about, okay, and so how can I get help for this kind of thing. Victory Gardens has been involved with the CPPW grant, Communities Putting Prevention to Work. We're writing 3 curriculums, resident gardening, community gardening, and school gardening curriculums that will be utilized at 5 regional garden education centers to be located around San Diego County. 2 of them already exist, okay, and they're just in the early stages, but they've been identified. Solana Center for Environmental Innovation is going to be a regional garden education center, and so is Olivewood Gardens down in National City. 3 more are yet to be selected, but they're going to be in different parts of the county so that once they're up and running, once we've trained the trainers, there'll be 5 more access points for knowledge about community gardens, residential gardening, and school gardens. So that's going to help, I think, a lot of people, help us too, as far as having more trainers out there in a place where you can get to them. So be looking on our website, and once these are all up and running and we've trained the trainers, they have to provide training to people as part of their receiving the grant. So it's going to be a case of they got to teach you. So they'll be advertising, they'll be soliciting, they'll be looking for people. And I know the schedule for Solana
is that in Small Beach?
Is already up. It's Encinitas, yeah, close. Yeah.
You live in Small Beach.
Yeah, close. Yeah, close enough. Yeah. So they'll be check the Solana Center website, and that should be coming up there.
Bob, will that include a tool library of any sort?
Glad you asked. Yes, ultimately, the plans are for the grant to include a tool library at each site. That and it's forming right now. The idea is for larger things that you may not want to buy yourself, but that you could borrow and bring back. And they'll probably be unique to each site to a degree, but there'll also probably be some basic things that you need, and we'll be able to access and then bring back.
Final words?
It's really exciting.
These guys are pioneers, you know, and it really is a credit to them that 2 years ago they had this vision, and if you have that intent, you set that intent out there, it wax a little philosophical, good things happen. You got to keep pushing though. Intent and effort, I guess, are the 2 components to success.
And if you are interested in communities, if you want to send an email to, you can send it to plantsandiego@gmail.com, and because I may know, or else post something on the Facebook page. I'll put you in touch with other people if I know there are groups that are working on gardens in other areas, because I believe there's another one in Linda Vista that's on it, that hopefully they'll start one in Linda Vista. There's an Elga Home group. There's somebody who's called me from Lakeside. There's somebody down in San Isidro. I mean, they're just, so it's a great way to, we do need that kind of little networking so that we can hook people up so that they know about each other.
Do you have an idea of how many gardens are growing food for beyond individual need? In other words, are some of these gardens producing food to donate to the community?
I think a lot of the new gardens are. I don't know too many of the old gardens that are, but I think I think there's a different mood here about what community gardens are, because we are thinking more about community and in the larger sense. And some gardens are have better community within themselves than others. And, I mean, I know there are some gardens where people just come and do their little plot, and they don't even know who has the plot next to them. But so there's a range, and we would like to see all the new gardens have that sense of community. So I know there are at least the TLC garden grows food to give away. The New Roots Community Farm here. Not like they feed the people who garden there feed themselves. Plus they also sell some food, and that's for the refugee community.
It's part of the plan at Sera.
Yeah.
Sera Mesa has the food bank, and that's
we
kind of.
have our own food pantry, and a requirement is that people can grow their own, but they'll be required to give some of it to the pantry. Plus, there's some people who have their own gardens at home, just love to garden, and they're growing specifically for the pantry. So we're expecting to get quite a bit. In fact, we're going to be monitoring how many pounds of food come out of that. Because for one thing, we have to give it to the food bank and Feeding America San Diego also. So.
Some cities actually require you to have a food bank. Seattle, in all the community gardens in Seattle, there has to be an area for growing for either food banks or for giving food to people. So, you know, there are a lot of concepts. And the last thing I was going to tell you about the network is we're working on getting an insurance policy for liability insurance for gardens that aren't associated with another organization that has their own insurance. So if there are opportunities to come up for a garden on city land or somebody's private property and would like you to have insurance, we're hoping that in the next 3 to 4 months we'll have that up and going.
Okay, we're done.